the land of the free and the home of the brave. We make America seem like the promised land, but there are many flaws that are often overlooked in society. One of the things that cripple us as a whole is the low minimum wage. In America alone, 15.1%, almost 50 million people, live under the poverty level according to the National Poverty Center at the University of Michigan. This is a irrelevant issue to all who read this because people we know, and ourselves included, will all be a cog in the machine that is working force of America. The current minimum wage is too low and it should be raised to 10.10 in order to improve the quality of living for those who are paid minimum wage. As we analyze this issue, we will discuss that the actual problem is, what is the root of the cause of the problem, and what we can do in order to cure the issue.
Minimum wage is no longer enough to survive. According to the article Raise the Minimum Wage in the LA Times newspaper, a full-time minimum wage worker with one dependent barely makes enough to stay above the federal poverty line of $15,000 a year. However, this applies only to those who have a full-time job, which is not that many. Myself, along with other people, feel the need of having a second job, which is just as difficult because jobs are so scarce, which is why not many have a full-time job in the first place. I've applied for part-time jobs and I have gotten a couple positions, but only with part-time hours. I then feel forced to work 2 jobs in order to pay for rent and have at least a little bit of money for food. I am sure I'm not the only person who has feel forced to have 2 jobs. This is the reason as to why these minimum wage employees remain in the deepest of poverty, not being able to afford even the simplest
With
lifestyle.
the issue of minimum wage being too low, the real question is, who is to blame? The reason that the minimum wage is not higher is because the people who are on top of the economic pyramid, those being the CEOs and other people who constitute the 1% of our population, they are the ones who are holding out on the workers. According to Erica Johnson, writer for HotAir.com, she quoted Dr. Dubé, associate professor of economics at the University of Massachusetts, in a March 2013 article, saying, quote, "If we started in 1960 and we said that as productivity goes up, that is, as workers are producing more, then the minimum wage is going to go up the same. And if that were the case, the minimum wage today would be about $22 an hour." End quote. So in question, what happened to the other $14.75? Another reason that the CEOs gave as to why they don't raise the minimum wage is if they raise the minimum, then they will have to shed jobs in order to make up for the extra money that they will have to pay. However, according to Robert Reich, former Secretary of Labor for President Clinton, this is total baloney. He stated that, quote, "Employers won't outsource the jobs abroad or substitute machines for them because jobs at this low level of pay are all in the local personal service sector, those being in retail, those in the restaurants, part of hotels, and so on and so forth." He also went on to give proof and say, quote, "States that have a minimum wage closer to $9 than the current federal minimum don't have the higher rates of unemployment than do states that are still at the federal minimum wage." End quote. All in his 2013 article, he stated, "Why isn't raising the minimum wage a no-brainer?"
Now that we know what the real problem is and who is at fault, there's a solution to this madness. We increase the minimum wage to $10.10 slowly over the course of 3 years. Many politicians do not agree with the raising of minimum wage, but if it's slowly done, they might consider raising the minimum wage to $10.10. Many politicians also do not agree because they don't want inflation to increase rapidly, because they don't want a even bigger gap between the working class and the high-end CEOs. So one example of this policy being pushed forward is from the Huffington Post, a writer named Tim Hurt on April 25th, 2013, in Sacramento, he said that there was a bill being proposed for $9.25, again over the course of 3 years. $10.10 is not that much more, and it could help these people who are earning minimum wage because of their job have an emergency fund for when they are either sick or hurting, or their child or someone in their family is sick and hurting, and they do not have to worry about working from paycheck to paycheck. They actually have a little bit of extra money on the side. Another example of this policy being put into place is, according to the writer from the NBC News, No, on September 25, 2013, Governor Jerry Brown signed into law that over the next 3 years the minimum wage will increase to $10. Adding 10 more cents is not that big of a deal because in July 2014 the minimum wage will be $9. Adding a cent or maybe 5 cents would be okay because it's not making a huge difference, but in someone's life who is struggling very hard to keep their lives going, not only for themselves but their families, it will make a tremendous difference. So in overall, we should increase the minimum wage to $10.10 over the course of 3 years. It's very simple, and it's a compromise between the workers and the politicians so that they can come together and agree on one
The
single
idea that
thing.
America may be the wealthiest country is perceived by the notion that every American is wealthy. That is not the case. Our citizens are suffering from debt and insecurity resulting from our country's established minimum wage. If we are to see positive change in our society, then we need to increase our minimum wage. We have not only discussed the problem of low wages, but we have also discussed the cause of this issue. We have laid out a powerful proposition in order to cure this problem. It is no secret that our American citizens are suffering from an inability to overcome poverty. The proposition of increasing our minimum wage is essential to moving our citizens into a more prominent and flourishing future.